Okay, hello everyone. It's the Great Pumpkin, your dear pal, friend, and companion. What's going on, everyone? So, I'm like, eh, bleh, all over the place, kinda, and yeah, stuff's happening in the world. Um, Part of that stuff is just getting crazy. Lots of stuff happen. Personally, just some monkey wrenches thrown in my day just about every single day. But that's part of the job. Speaking of that job, that's one of the two reasons why I apologize for not making this series daily. Because I know that with the job I have, it's not exactly going to be daily because I've got a really weird, silly job. That silly job being a tour guide. I am a tour guide. I take little kids on field trip tours because that's my job. And yeah, it's pretty strange because especially days like today where I wanted to like strangle three little 11-year-old kids. It's it's rough. It's real rough. And it's not the best job in the world for somebody who's not patient, aka myself. So yeah, I'm trying to deal with some stuff as far as being able to handle children better, but it got to the point today where I had to scream at the child, one child in particular. There's always the troublemaker. This one child decided he was going to be the most obnoxious person I've ever seen, and I eventually had to tell him, "You are holding your teacher's hand until we get all the way back to the start of the tour." And he was not very happy about that. But I didn't care because he was ruining my day and the rest of the tour of everyone else. So I was like, "Yay, I get you to shut up now. Whoa!" Even though I really wanted to scream, "Shut up!" quite a bit of the day. It was actually quite annoying. So there's that. I have a job. It's, yeah, that's one of the reasons why it's not every day. I try to, when I play Battlefield, I'll try most of the time just to hit record for a half an hour, and just whatever half an hour recording I get is what you're seeing in the background. So there's that. I'm at least recording video always. I'm not always recording audio for the video. But yeah, so second reason mainly is that there's a lack of things to talk about actually that are able to be discussed, because I do watch the evening news sometimes, and I get news from other sources, but the main source I get it from is Twitter, because I can follow all the major different news networks and get sources from all over the place. So I've always got a constant feed of things that are happening. But this week in particular, it's just been a lot of people screaming at each other and not much actual interesting stuff to talk about. And while I do like talking about political things, most of the time I try to make it so I can at least somewhat see both sides and then talk about it from my perspective and then have someone comment back from a different perspective. So I try to talk about different things that can actually be discussed instead of just a couple of people screaming at each other, not listening to the other's points, and just not being mean and nasty in the first place. And lately there's not been a whole lot of that. There's been a lot of just weird, crazy stuff happening in the world. It's really sad. And one of those things being, I can't think of it right now actually, because there's a lot of things that go on and I just try to forget them, because if it's super negative I try to forget. But honestly I don't even know what I was going to say, really. I tried to record this episode yesterday. I went through the whole half hour, and only when I got to the end of the recording did I figure out my mic was off the entire time. So all the great stuff I was saying yesterday, I just had a blank recording. It was fantastic. So I'm really lost for words, because once I get my ideas and thoughts out there, it's just like, okay, problem solved, boom, done. I don't have to talk about it anymore. So I'm kind of stuck. I'm kind of lost today. Some of the stuff I was talking about is just, like I said, there's got to be something both sides can talk about, whether one side is completely wrong and the right side has to try to convince them, or being just something silly that two people can talk about from two different points of view, and I try to talk about at least one silly, weird thing per episode, just, as a comedic relief kind of, or just a tension breaker. Because I do personally like heavier stories. I like things that matter. I like things that are happening really and affect people. But you've got to throw something in there just so it's not a completely heavy negative episode. So I try to find a couple of things, and it's yeah. So there's not really been a whole lot of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the stuff that I probably could have said yesterday, that I probably did say yesterday, that nobody got to hear, and try to reiterate that as best I can without sounding repetitive. Even though none of you heard it, it's going to sound repetitive to me. So, some of the news I've gathered over the past week is that a New Jersey high school is forcing the cheerleading squad to accept everyone or to disband, and no one gets in. And this is all over the fact that some soccer mom complained about her daughter didn't make it on the cheer squad, and she doesn't think that's fair, and everybody is against her because reasons unknown, whatever the reason is that she didn't make the team. And this mom's not getting the idea that there's a reason you make the team. It's because you're good enough to make the team, and if you're not good enough, then you don't make it. Doesn't understand this. So this lady complained to the staff of the school, and they said that the cheerleading squad now has to accept all tryouts, or no one gets to cheer, meaning that the girls who worked really, really hard for it are being punished and held back by having to accept people that are nowhere near good enough to compete with them on their level and let them succeed. And it's stupid because, as you can logically think, there's reasons why you wouldn't make the cheerleading squad. Maybe you're not athletic enough to keep up with the other girls. Maybe you're not charismatic enough. I don't want a wallflower trying to cheer me up because they're not good at cheering themselves up. That doesn't make any sense. I don't want a 300-pound obese whale sitting on the top of a 5-person pyramid ready to barely snap the legs of everyone underneath her and have the thing fall to the ground. It's just not a good fit. So it kind of tweaks my nerves a bit when somebody has the audacity to say that that's not fair when there's obvious blatant requirements that need to be met. Otherwise, it can't happen. There's a reason. There's lots of reasons, in fact. It's called safety. You have to be safe. These girls have to be athletic enough and limber enough to be able to do the job without hurting themselves. And I'm sorry, Mom, but if your daughter doesn't make that requirement, I don't see why you should have to punish everyone who can make that requirement. It's bringing everyone down. And that's, like, everybody's been cut from something, or knows someone that has been cut from something. And it really bugs me a bit, because I was in the marching band at my high school for 3 years, and it was super, super annoying, because there's always that one kid, at least one kid, sometimes there's multiple like there were last year. There's always at least that one kid who is holding everyone back because their ability isn't as good, but they try, and they try, and they keep trying to improve, and they keep trying to improve. And since you don't want to be mean, and you want to try to help them out and see if they can improve, you keep them on to, try to help them out. But they're just not improving, and they're not getting better no matter how much you try to help. And so you eventually have to say, well, we tried, but this isn't for you. You're cut from the band, you're cut from the team. So somebody's going home sad. That's just the way life is. That doesn't mean you could punish everyone else by convincing the staff of the school to say everyone makes it or no one makes it just because you and your special snowflake felt like you needed to be on the team that bad. Not a lot of the time when I'm moving between subjects, I'll get kind of fired up about something, as you've heard so far. So I'll just say, it's stupid. I don't like it. Move on. And that's what I'm doing now. So moving on, since I have nothing else to say on that. Should I go with a kind of heavy or somewhat heavy story? Let's go a little bit different from yesterday so I don't feel like I'm repeating myself. President Trump has agreed to hold a summit on race with Kanye West and other athletes, artists, etc. None of these people that he's agreed to have so far are people who actually study race for a living and how it affects people and demographics and things like that. None of these people know politicians or professors. It's just people that have influenced society. And those are the ones that really, honestly, need to educate themselves so they can use their influence to educate others. And so I'm very happy that Kanye West is finally starting to say, hey, I'm a free thinker now. I don't want to be held down by these other stereotypes that all black people have to be Democrats and all these other things. So Kanye is now giving people the freedom to speak up and say what they please because, well, if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me. And people are starting to think their own way now. Finally, it's about time. I don't know what's been happening to you that you think you can't think for yourself, but whatever that is. And so while I think it's nice, I do think that there should be some more educated people there as well. I can't think of any off the top of my head right now, but maybe an actual political science professor who specifically studies demographics and how that affects elections or some things like that. Or economists who study the differences between black cultures and other cultures within America and their success rates because of certain things in their cultures. If you could bring in a couple of those people to the summit as well, perhaps they could educate not only the president, but also some of these major influencers like Kanye, Chance the Rapper. I don't even know who that is, honestly. I've just heard his name before. It's being said so much. Or Michael Jordan or whoever. Some people that these people look up to. And once they're all educated, then they can use their influence together collectively to start making a difference, because any politician can pass a law and say that, oh, this is happening now, but it actually takes work by everyday common people on the lowest level of society to make that work. And if those everyday people don't want to do the work, and they don't know how to do the work, then nothing gets done despite how many laws you pass. So it's awesome that Trump has actually agreed to have a medium with Kanye and these other leaders of the different cultural pieces of society, so people can actually have a voice and be heard and know that their idols are supporting them, their idols are trying to educate them, and it's just a really nice thing. It's awesome that this is happening, because no other president has ever done something like this, where they go straight to the people that make life for the rest of us enjoyable and say, hey, this is how we can work together to make everyone's day better. It's just a great thing. It's awesome. I love it. So, next topic here. I really don't have any transitions between subjects, as you know. I just have a couple things jotted down and I talk about it. So here we go. The other nice thing. Okay. Back to a little bit more of a hot topic here. George Washington University is in a spot where students and staff want to change the name of the university because George Washington had slaves, and the mascot, the Colonials, is now an offensive term. I'll explain the second first. So the Colonials is the mascot of George Washington University, always has been since the thing was founded, apparently. And personally, I don't understand it, because, like, what is a colonial? But then you go and you say, okay, well, what do they find offensive about it to start off with? And what people are taking offense to is that they're confusing the term colonial, as in the person who lived in the colonial era, and colonialism, which is the practice of colonizing and assimilating. And these people are thinking, oh, well, since they mean the same thing, which they don't, we should get rid of it because we don't like the fact that people were conquered and oppressed and different things like that. And so it's bad. It's very bad, 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 bad. No, we can't have that now. It's bad. Colonialism's bad. We can't conquer people. We can't tell them how to live their lives. We should change the name. I'm all for that sentiment if that were the case. Go ahead, but that's not the case, because what they're actually talking about is the colonial is the person who lives in the colonialist society. That can be anyone from the conqueror to the conquered. Once you are the conquered and part of the new society, you are in effect, because you live in their colony, a colonial. So it's really just, it's give and take. Like, what do you want from this? I understand that you don't like colonialism, but that's not what this is standing for. This is just a person who lived in the colonial era. Just like a patriot, the New England Patriots are people that are patriotic. Colonials are just people that lived in the colonial era. It's not really a big deal. So I'm not sure what that's all about. Then they want to change the name of the university to something that's not George Washington. There's a couple different things thrown out there, and the only one that sticks in my head is the Independence as the mascot and Independent University. And they want that changed for two different reasons. One is they don't like the fact that George Washington had slaves. Two, they don't like the fact that George Washington had slaves. They really, really don't like that. So when the Charlottesville riot happened, in the weeks afterwards, they started taking down different memorials to great, fantastic people. But they took them down because those people were slave owners as well. And that just completely threw a monkey wrench in the reputation of these fantastic people who had one tiny flaw, or relatively tiny. I mean, it is people ownership. That's kind of bad. But they're ruining the reputations of these people and slandering them even though they're dead, and ripping away everything they actually stood for by saying, screw you, you own slaves, you're bad, get out now, and then tearing down their statues and renaming things that are after them. And so because George Washington owned slaves at one point in his life, he's got to go. He's bad. He's got to go. And this is just a... what's the word? I don't want to say prolonged. It's not necessarily prolonged, but it's afterwards. It's a long time afterwards, whatever the word is. It's a long time after the Charlottesville riots, and people are still doing this. So it's kind of like the remnants. That's it. It's a remnant of the Charlottesville riots. And they're just trying to tear it down because we don't like it. It's not good. Nope, we don't like it, which I perfectly understand. But you also have to realize that George Washington was the first president of the United States. That alone is a very worthy reason to name a school after him. So, changing the name from George Washington University, which has a very nice ring to it. It's, for one, it sounds nice. Two, it has meaning. It has a reputation. Just like the Ohio State University, the biggest school where I live. A very famous school, very good reputation. It's an awesome school. People love going there. It's a great pick for people to go because of its reputation. Now, if you changed the Ohio State University to Buckeye University, Buckeye is the state tree. Okay, sure, that still represents Ohio, but it's just a tree. The tree means practically nothing. It's just a representative. It has no reputation of its own. It has no meaning past just being a tree. So, taking away the meaning of the Ohio State University, the reputation that's behind that name, and replacing it with just the name of a tree, it's doing it a disservice. You lose its reputation. You lose all meaning behind the word. So, taking George Washington and replacing that with the Independence. Ooh, cool. Anybody can be independent. That's not special. Congratulations. You don't fit in your own category. Congratulations. You're independent. Whoop-de-doo. But George Washington, wow. That's a powerful name behind it. It's got a good reputation. I think I want to go there because it sounds really cool. You lose all meaning behind that, so I don't understand why you changed the name. And the whole deal with the slaves being, George Washington did own a plantation in Virginia, as many people know, called Mount Vernon. And the only way he could maintain that farm was by owning slaves. He didn't do it because he liked the dominance over another race. He wasn't a racist man who enjoyed punishing and mistreating other human beings like animals. No. It's because the easiest way and the only way at the time to have enough people to work your farm that big, that plantation, was to have slaves. A, if you didn't have to pay them, you could make a lot more profit. And B, it was the only way you could get enough labor to work the farm. Any farmer is not rich enough to hire 200 people to manually do labor on his farm. So you have to have slaves because no one has enough wages to pay normal, regular working people to do the farm work. So that's the only way. So it's not like he was a racist, bigoted slave owner in the South where they actually mistreated the blacks like pigs, dogs, worse than humans. It was just simply the way his life was. It's the only way he could make a profit to keep his family afloat. And people say, well, okay, well, what happened to the slaves then when he died? He left in his will that all the slaves that he owned upon his death would be freed. That's great, but there's still slaves on the property, correct? That's because Martha Washington was, George was not her first husband. And because of that, when she was originally married to her first husband, in part of her dowry, meaning a gift given by the father of the husband, I think that's the way it goes. When you get married, or when you used to get married at least, one family would give the other a gift in exchange for their daughter's marriage. And that gift to Martha was 1/3 of his property, including slaves. So because Martha's first husband owned slaves, she was given 1/3 of all of his slaves. And seeing as that's technically, at the time those laws existed, technically they're on permanent loan to her. Her husband still owned them, so when he died, he could not free them anymore, and since Martha legally could not free them, the family still owned slaves, and so when she married George Washington, they just had to deal with it. That's just the way things were. And people don't get that and realize, hey, it's not because he was a hateful man who wanted to own slaves and treat them like less than humans. It's just because that was the way it was. So it's kind of stupid that people want to change the name to dishonor such a great man that did this country so much good. I don't like it at all. And then the last bit I'll bring to someone's attention today is the Honduras Caravan. It has piled up on the U.S.-Mexico border, has made it through. Not all of them, but quite a few of them have made it through. Excuse that yawn, it's been a rough day. But, yeah. So, little background for those of you who don't know. A couple weeks ago, a caravan of Honduras residents traveled on foot to through Mexico, first off, through Mexico, which they should have just stopped at Mexico, and they walked all the way to the United States border, and they're demanding to be let in and seeking asylum. So the way it goes, it's supposed to go, is you come to the border, you go to one of the ports, one of the legal ports, especially the legal ports. You go to the legal ports and say, yes, I want to seek asylum here because my country was terrible. They're oppressive. They don't let me do what I want. Their taxes are so high I can't feed my family, or the government's come and robbing us and things like that. The government's doing criminal activity to make it so I can't live in this country. And we say, okay, yeah, sure, yeah, that's terrible. We'll let you in to our country. We'll help you out. We'll get you some help. So after that, you are detained And this isn't like being arrested. This is just a place for you to stay until you can start the path to legal citizenship. And so while you're in these detention centers, they can only hold so many people. There's only so many beds. So the problem comes when A, we're not very sure if their claims of asylum are legitimate, and B, we don't have enough beds at the detention centers for all these people. I believe the detention centers are made to hold 70-ish people at a time, and some people are already in that center, so they're not already at capacity. Excuse me once again. Okay, yawn number 2 is out of the way. Where was it? Okay, capacity. So they already are running at less than empty capacity, meaning that somewhere between 50 and 30 people are not going to get a bed. Out of the 150 person group that walked all the way to the border claiming asylum, there's no room for you people. We can't hold you all. I'm sorry, but we have to turn you back until we have the capacity to help you. We don't have the capacity to help you right now. And the liberals of America, which are fantastically entertaining but sadly misinformed and uneducated, they decide that because we're humans and everybody wants the same chance and everybody wants to be nice and fair to each other, and oh, wouldn't you want help if it was you? They say, let them in. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They can come in. We need to help them with everything we have. But we're not legally required to help them. So I don't know why it's such a big deal. They're not allowed in. Just don't let them in. That's why the wall's there. That's why we need a wall, so people can't just walk into this country when we literally can't help them. So when we can't literally help people, we need a wall, and that's where Mexico comes in, because these people walked from Honduras in Central America through Mexico to the US. They didn't claim asylum in Mexico, which is what they should have done, because by agreement with Mexico and the United States, Mexico is considered a safe country. So once you're there, you're not oppressed anymore. You're not being persecuted. It's all good. You're free now, homie. And that's not what they did. So they should have stopped in Mexico first and claimed asylum there and said, hey, can you help us? Which is very helpful because Mexicans speak Spanish. And as far as I'm concerned, the people of Honduras speak Spanish. So it would have been a much better fit than trying to assimilate to an American culture where we speak English. So Mexico could have helped them out a lot better. But they didn't. They want America. They see the grass is greener on the other side. The grass here is pretty nice. It's pretty good. We could live a nice life here. But we want the best grass. We want America's grass. And so they just completely screwed Mexico and says, nah, we're not doing that. We're not gonna follow the rules. We're gonna go to the U.S. We're gonna make the U.S. pay to keep us, and we know that their liberal government won't refuse us. So like, we're gonna go get lots of free help and stuff anyway. We're gonna get food stamps. We're gonna get housing. It's all gonna be great, guys. Watch this. Ready? We're gonna go to America. It's gonna be awesome. And I don't like it. We need to just get a bigger wall and say screw you. It's okay if you want to come here legally, but we can't have 150 of you rushing in at the same time. So there's a little bit to think about. So I hope you enjoy your day. Maybe some of my erratic thoughts will bounce around in your brain. You might have your own opinion, so leave a comment about what you liked, what you possibly didn't like, and maybe just a general note. So watch this epic kill right here, and have a nice day. Thank you for watching your daily dose of lead.